Comrades. How are we doing today? It is Tuesday, the 18th of May, 2021. This is your daily Good Morning Comrade. I slept in like 10 minutes today, so that ate into my show prep time. So we're going to be doing a little bit of improv here. A little bit of improv. So, how's it going, everybody? I'm feeling like you do this morning. If you feel anything like I do, buddy, then yeah, it's gonna be a rough one. Y'all got that weather coming through here too, because I mean we're getting like, we're getting that 3 a.m. like your alarm goes off and says there's gonna be floods and thunderstorms and horrible weather. I got one right here. National Weather Service tornado warning in this area. 4:15 a.m. Central Daylight Time. Take shelter now in a basement or an interior room or on the lowest floor of a sturdy building. If you are outdoors, in a mobile home, or in a vehicle, move to the closest substantial shelter and protect yourself from flying debris. Check media. Definitely make sure you watch the news, folks. But did that go past through you? Did that go through you? Because definitely came through me. I didn't even put my lights on. What kind of streamer am I if I'm not going to have my streamer lights on? Not very professional. Not professional at all. I passed through yesterday. Yeah, it's hitting here like right now. Incredible. It's been like one hell of a spring for like essentially monsoon season. It's been truly and genuinely wild, especially considering like, Saturday and Sunday were like beautiful days, and then next thing you know, it looks like this it looks like the end of the world out there half the time. Anyway, how's it going? What's going on? We got the radio show going on right now as well. WHIV. That's David Story is the guest for that. That's a good one. But yeah, I did have this story saved up for today that I wanted to talk about, and it really kind of like brings into like some like it kind of like highlights just how little like the government, I guess you could say, specifically the CDC, is just kind of flying by the seat of their pants. Because right here it says that 80% of like hundreds of epidemiologists expected mask wearing in public to last for a year, and they basically wiped it out last week. This is a little bit of an older article, but I saw it come up in my timeline, and I wanted to kind of go through that on COVID question, and then we can see what else we hit on. So hundreds of epidemiologists expected mask wearing in public for at least a year. The CDC said Thursday that vaccinated Americans no longer need masks in most places. Other disease experts recently had a different message that masks are necessary in public. Yeah. So part of the reason that that's necessary is that, I mean, if you look at somebody, if I look at whoever and just, I can't tell if they've been vaccinated or not. So, I mean, when you put the word out that, oh, not wearing a mask is like an indication that you're vaccinated, or whatever, you can't tell if that person's vaccinated or not. Like, Americans are basically babies, and they don't want to do anything that's like slightly uncomfortable. Like, I don't know. It seems to me like it would have made a lot more sense to say, well, everybody's wearing a goddamn mask until we get to 80% vaccination rate. It's actually kind of insane. So here, when federal health officials said on Thursday that fully vaccinated Americans no longer needed to wear masks in most places, it came as a surprise to many people in public health. It also was a stark contrast to the views of a large majority of epidemiologists surveyed in the last 2 weeks by the New York Times. In the informal survey, 80% said that they thought Americans would need to wear masks in public indoor places for at least another year. We're only stopping it 1 year early, though. Just 5% said people would no longer need to wear masks indoors by this summer. So we're going with like a very tiny minority of epidemiologists here. I mean, I'm not a policy genius or expert or anything like that, but like you would think that these would be decent people to listen to. I'm not like saying the nerds know everything, but most of the nerds are saying we got to be careful on this. In large crowds outdoors, like at a concert or protest, 88% of epidemiologists said it was necessary for fully vaccinated people to wear masks. Good God. Unless the vaccination rates increase to 80 or 90% over the next few months, we should wear masks in large public indoor settings, said Vivian Tao, a program officer at Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute. The responses came from 723 epidemiologists submitted between April 28th and May 10th, before the new guidance for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The survey asked epidemiologists about being outdoors in groups of various sizes and about being indoors with people whose vaccination status was unknown. So, I mean, I guess what this ultimately tells you is something that we already kind of did know. So Mark Allenderry and Doc Griggs on their show, Noise Filter, were talking about this, and they have they've been really, really hard on the CDC because the CDC has been acting like a political entity essentially since the pandemic started. So, for example, like under Trump, they were making all these decisions about all these guidances, these lighter guidances for public appearances and like going out in public and specifically for public buildings and all this other stuff. Then that would instruct governors and all these other things. And there was this sort of sense that when Trump, hey Kenzo, when Trump was gone and Biden was in, like then the CDC would no longer act politically, which is fucking ridiculous. It's really one of those crazy things where it's just like magical thinking that the Democrat is just going to be doing the right thing because the Democrats always do the right thing and the Republicans always do the wrong thing or whatever. And like Kenzo says, yeah, exactly right. That's what kills me. Agencies are beholden to their bosses. They've always been political. That's how bureaucratic systems function. That's how they operate. If you're in the CDC, if you work, as a, regular, I guess, kind of mid-level doctor or whatever, you're trying to get promoted. You're not necessarily, doing anything particularly. I don't know. You're not in charge, and you're basically whenever your boss you do what your boss tells you, so you can survive to the next day or whatever. The other brother thinks that the vax has some kind of an ability for the government to press a button and kill you. You know what? The government has the ability to press a button and kill you already. Like that's kind of one of those crazy things. Like when people sort of say that, like, oh, I don't want the government to be able to like spy on me. You have a fucking phone in your pocket that's got 4G. Yeah, we already got cops. We already got cops that murder people at their homes. Yeah, all these agencies. If they wanted you dead bad enough, it would not be very hard to get rid of you. I mean, sorry, it's one person versus a state, and the idea that like one person could like outwit the state or outsmart the state, it's literally movie shit. isn't it? It's like something that comes through, like, I don't know. It's almost like a, I don't know. It's wild. Anyway, um, so yeah, I I don't want to like get too much in on specifically the mask thing. Um, it's just like symptomatic of more, but it also, but I guess what it tells you more than anything to me is that one. I mean, again, I hate to do this, but like, hold on. Americans are definitely like going to do what they're going to do no matter what. There's no like, as soon as this kind of policy or this kind of guidance gets released, like the last couple of times already, you see states decide to go like way beyond it. So I think it was what 2 weeks ago we reported on here that like South Carolina had just decided that actually we're not going to require any masks in any kind of public buildings. Fuck it, we're just going to go all out. Who gives a shit? And even in schools, they essentially said, "Oh, if get your parents, if you get a parents can sign a kid's a waiver or whatever, saying that I don't want my kid to wear a mask in school anymore. Guess what? Teacher or whatever, you're fucked." And the guidance has never been really strictly adhered to anyway, but it does sort of like provide almost like a North Star, I guess you could say, in a certain sense, for how far a lot of these, kind of renegade states would go. And now it's just like, well, there's nothing left. So, I mean, basically, the pandemic's over, at least as far as the government's concerned, other than just getting the vaccine to people, which is not even fucking happening anymore. It's like halted. So, there you go. You told them bullets are a lot cheaper than the vaccine. It's true. Yeah, but Pfizer doesn't make anything off of those. Or Moderna. I don't know. I usually, if when I talk to people about that, I'll just say, oh, you know what? That might be true, but my 5G reception has never been better. So there you go. What else we got today? Let's see here. Yeah, it's coming down hard. Oh, the Matt Gates's buddy is he's pled guilty to 6 federal crimes. Let's take a look at that. So Matt Gates was well, he still is really a congressman, and he was essentially accused of organizing and paying 17-year-old girls, not women, girls, to go across state lines and have sexual relationships with him. And now the person that's like the main accomplice in this, Joel Greenberg, is getting he's getting clapped. 6 crimes. You have a person density per the area you're in, and if there's more than 5 people within 100 feet, you put the mask on. Is that like a work thing? Is that like that's like a personal rule that you have? Yeah, I tried. I don't know. When I'm outside the house, for the most part, I have a mask on, even though I'm fully vaccinated. I don't know. It seems to me that I don't know. The mask doesn't bother me that much. Like some people complain about like it being like a pain or something like that. I mean, it hurts my ears, I guess, a little bit after a couple of hours, but I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. Plus, it hides my ugly face. Anyway, that was a joke. I know I'm beautiful. Anyway, yeah. Greenberg. So in Orlando, you don't do anything else. Yeah. A former friend and ally of Representative Matt Gaetz formally pled guilty. Pleaded? Is it pleaded or pled? I thought it was pled. He pleaded guilty to multiple federal charges, including sex trafficking a minor, ID theft, stalking, and fraud, bringing his broad crimes brief to an end and officially marking a new chapter in the investigation of the embattled congressman. Joel Greenberg, who had served locally as an elected tax collector in Central Florida's Seminole County, had to resign his post after last year after he was hit with the first of 3 indictments that eventually totaled 33 federal charges, but prosecutors agreed to pare those back in order to secure his cooperation. So he's going to talk. I keep I don't know. This is not particularly. We're having trouble streaming to Twitch. Oh boy, I'm having a Twitch problem. You wear a mask until they remake the entire capitalist concept of commuting. I'm sick of the flu and family dying. That's hilarious. I don't know what the tech issue is. I don't know why Twitch decided to fail. Hello, Twitch. I know that's where Kenzo was watching. Anyway, Greenberg has now confessed to falsely accusing an innocent man of having sex with a minor, said Harlan Hill, a Gaetz spokesperson. Dude, I'm thinking that Matt Gaetz might get clapped here, and I'm not sad about it. I'm thinking he's going to get clapped. This is the crimes. He first met the sex trafficking victim on the website for sugar babies, seeking sugar daddies, according to the plea agreement, confirming an earlier Politico report concerning the website seeking arrangement. According to the plea, Greenberg paid her explicitly for sex at least 7 times after meeting her on April 24th. On September 4th of that year, Greenberg illegally accessed her driver's license records after she told him she was underage. 3 sources tell Politico that the victim had falsely advertised herself as 19, blaming it on her. That doesn't fucking matter. Paid $70,000 for sex with different women. This is Greenberg through the website. Insisted they were taking Molly or MDMA with them. Greenberg told others that the victim was underage and that no one had sexual relations with her after the date she accessed her ID. Yeah, this dude's, the charges. Yeah, I think I'm thinking that Matt Gaetz is in trouble. So I work I go into people's businesses and their homes right now, and I'm always wearing my mask. I don't know. It's not even for me necessarily, because if other people are not going to wear their masks, then they're the ones that are, not protected. I'm the one that's not protected because, it goes from one person to another. The mask is for protecting the person that's around you, not for yourself necessarily. Oh, wow. Okay. I am curious about this. I don't know what it's going to be like, but I do have this question here, or this video here, and it might make me mad. Is the South racist? Let's take a look.
Hey, you look at the Negroes in this country, what do they want? They want people to come from Africa. The Mexicans want people, they stick up for their own kind. The Mexicans want more Mexicans here. It's that way.
We're at Mother Emanuel Church. This tragedy has gone in the country talking about racism, especially in the South. So we're going to take a road trip to where Dylan Roof grew up. And along the way, we're going to stop and ask folks, is the South more racist?
I don't know why this popped up in my feed.
Have you experienced any racism here as an African-American woman?
No.
Did you grow up in the South?
I grew up in the South. I see a lot of things. I didn't like racism. I didn't like people just one of the color of their skin. None of that. I didn't like. I hate it.
Maybe it's the heat that caused everybody to act the way they do.
Recently, President Obama said that we need to start getting real about racism and stop being so polite. What do you think?
That's like literally the line from the Real World, right? I forgot that he said that. You got to stop being polite and start being real about racism.
To be a president and lead this country and not get involved in these type of issues.
We made it to the State House in the capital, Columbia, where the Confederate flag is flying and debates are raging. So let's go talk to some folks. Is the South more racist?
South ain't racist, no. If you ask most white.
Oh, that's ridiculous. I mean, you got a guy just wrapped in Confederate flags. Racism, what's that?
South more racist?
South ain't racist, no.
If you ask most white people, how often do you think about race? They would say, I don't, right? So if you ask black people, how often do you think about race? I think most will say every day.
There's all black colleges, there's all black churches, and nobody complains.
I mean, I think this report is.
But if whites have all white college, all white church, they're racist.
I think it comes from a history of the fact that they had to, because of segregation, they had to establish their own schools and churches. Yeah, African Americans.
Well, that's true. And everybody got along good back then.
Sorry, say that again. Just
the segregation, everybody got along good.
So we've reached Lexington. This is where Dylan Roof actually went to high school, and we're gonna see who we can talk to.
I kind of like hate the portrayal of this. I mean, I don't know, like. I'll wait till the end.
Around here. Is there a problem with racism out here?
Of course it is. It's the South.
Very racist down here.
What went on in your mind when you heard about what Dylan did?
I wasn't surprised.
Why?
We always knew the kid was messed up, and we knew he was going to do something like that, but we never thought he would actually do it like that.
Is there a lot of racism in Lexington, in South Carolina?
Not really. I mean, it is a good old boy state to classify it. A lot of riots are starting because of the racism. Charleston is actually, they're answering it with class.
We are not automatically going to wake up one day and be in a post-racial society unless we work to that end. I think everybody wants to be kind. Everyone wants to be nice, but underneath that, the waters run very deep.
All right.
Okay, just to give
the
you
reason I don't like that video is because that's something that, I mean, like most of that portrayal or whatever probably is somewhat to some extent true. However, one of the things that kind of bugged me about when those kind of things happen, or the way that, like, you know, and I'm not exactly sure where that reporter's from, but it's definitely something that prevails in like American media. So I'm just going to kind of go by those rules or by those sort of like things that I understand, just to sort of as a way to look at this. And the way that I sort of see it is, like, it is definitely true that there are more higher levels of explicit racism in the South, no question at all. Like, that's obvious. But one of the things that really sort of gets capitalized on by specifically, you know, people in like, you know, big cities or, you know, especially, you know, LA, New York, and, you know, parts of New Orleans, or whatever, is that there's sort of like there's this like acceptable racism that's allowed to exist within the system that's like not as explicit. I'm talking about things like pay disparity, redlining, things like that. That's not necessarily like they're correlatable, but they're not interpersonally like rude, if that makes sense. And that's sort of like and sort of like the latter view looks at the former view and sort of comes away with this sort of sense of superiority. And I don't think it accomplishes particularly much. But yeah, I was not a fan of that video. Here's a video on Amazon's union busting in Staten Island. I'm just going to do some videos this morning. This is from More Perfect Union. Love them.
It's only week 3. They're already starting the union busting. Amazon decided to put up a fence in the area in which we set up our tent. The purpose of this fence is to stop us from organizing. Plain and simple.
They had a beware of dog sign here too, but there was no dog over here. Anything to discourage workers from organizing.
The union busting is insane. You used to almost never hear them utter the word union in Amazon. It was almost like a bad word. But now it's in the bathrooms and the little comment board where they give you information.
I've seen misinformation in an attempt to scare people, kind of like, hey, don't try to join this.
Jesus Christ.
May 5th, we held a barbecue for all the workers so that they can get more information about the union, number one, and also they can eat good. The day after.
Dude, one way that you can get people to listen to you just for 5 minutes is by giving them some food. I love it.
This fence was built here. That actually caused us to change locations. Before our tent was here, and now it's located here. I believe that this fence was built to stop our movement. Now workers are looking for us after they get out of work and they can't find us. They're also sending text messages to all Amazon employees. Don't be misled. Someone may approach you outside and try to make you think they are part of Amazon. While some of these individuals may be current Amazon associates or representatives of the Amazon Labor Union, they mention our name, they do not represent Amazon.
Just because they wear a vest. The vest has nothing to do with it, I don't believe. It's just showing that other people that, yes, I work here too. I'm not representing Amazon. I don't want to represent Amazon. I want to represent the people that work here.
Earlier, the fire department came and they said that they had a complaint. The complaint was about our generator. But
that was one of those things, by the way, on the sort of like language of like saying, like I hear this a lot as a teacher. I've heard this even when I was like a kid. But there's this sort of like weird way that jobs will say that, like, even when you're not working, and this is like a moralizing around like teachers specifically, but there's this way that they'll say that you represent that job outside of, or specifically you represent your employer outside of work. So if like you're a teacher or something like that, you basically have some kind of like respectability standards that you have to be held up to. And like to some extent I understand why that's there. But the one of the ways it's utilized, especially in fucking Amazon, is to control people into saying, well, that's, to essentially make them feel like what they're doing might not be okay. So, yeah, that's really, I find that really interesting that even, I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, like, I think even when I worked at Burger King in high school or whatever, there was this sort of sense of like everywhere you go, everything you do, you are a representative, or you are, everything you do reflects on your job here at Burger King to a certain extent. So yeah.
Amazon. I want to represent the people that work here.
Earlier, the fire department came and they said that they had a complaint. The complaint was about our generator, but we're actually allowed to have it. It's like, it's legal what we're doing. So this just goes to show you that they'll do anything to stop our movement here,
Amazon is kind of just kicking dirt as hard as they can. I walked in today and there was a new little message on the TV, just more union bashing. And I was like, wow, they're really stepping it up. I even heard that
what did it say?
be just more
Don't be fooled by
union
the
bashing,
vest.
and
which
I
is
was like,
small,
wow,
right?
they're really.
You do not have to share your personal information with anyone or sign a union authorization card, even if they appear to be wearing an Amazon vest. No, yeah, that's a wow.
Stepping it up. I even heard that there's a person going around from Seattle asking people how they feel about unions and what's their standpoint. There's even on the bottom of all the messages, it's even telling them that if you have any questions about the unionizing or anything, talk to your manager or HR. I can't think of any two
Yeah, talk
groups
to
in
your
this
boss
building
about
that I
your
would talk
union.
to less than my manager and HR.
A lot of people in my building, I could say, are more afraid to do a union card because they're afraid of what our managers are going to say. Everyone's afraid that if you sign up for the union, it's going to be a problem at the job.
They're just scared to sign up because they feel as though Amazon will retaliate against them. 2020, we held a protest in front of JFK 8. Chris Smalls, who organized the actual protest, was fired in the same day. A week later, another comrade, Gerald Bryson, was fired as well, and they were both protesting. So I feel as though Amazon tried to send a message to anyone who would want to follow in their
I
footsteps.
mean, that's just very similar to what happened to Chris Smalls probably about a year ago. Also in New York. Was it at the same place? I think it was. But yeah, they're just busting on, attacking union leaders, same as it ever was.
For them to actually just fire somebody for trying to speak out about safety and stuff, it definitely made people feel a lot more expendable. I know a lot of people that are very pro-union but are afraid to lose their job.
You cannot be fired for signing a union card. That is actually illegal. So me explaining to them what Amazon can do and what they cannot do is very important.
You out here every day. You have legal representation if you need it, and you working what, the 10-hour shift or the 12-hour shift? 12 hours. Oh, so yeah, I used to be on RT too. So.
Did you hear about the Amazon labor union? I enjoy doing this, and I love interacting with people. Love hearing their stories. During my lunch break, I'm actually legally able to pass out the cards, union cards, and the pamphlets. Usually, I leave with a stack of filled out union cards by the end of my shift, and it's a good feeling. I know for a fact that we're going to get this done. We're going to get this union.
Most of them are going to vote yes. They're all blue collar people. Some of them had parents that were in unions, especially some of the older people that work in here. They're very for it. This is America. Like, everybody has a right to choose what they want. And we have a right to choose that we want a union.
We need to get this union started so everyone can have a voice.
Oh, yeah. I'm really glad that they're kind of keeping up with this Amazon union. I mean, with this new Amazon union. There's, we talked with David on the Valley Labor Report and Jacob from the Valley Labor Report over the past couple of weeks, two separate interviews, and we talked about how what we thought would be the outcome of because there was so much of a spotlight on the Bessemer union, and because they kind of they took a L, they got owned, unfortunately. What the sort of effects of that would be more broadly, and we were a little bit concerned that watching that particular union take a L, what everybody was watching with such a huge spotlight on it, would sort of make things a lot more, maybe stomp out some union activity, at least for the for the short term. And it considering that we have other union drives happening specifically with Amazon, not that it's the only thing obviously, but that's one that's getting a lot of attention, and really is quite necessary, because if you look at it, Amazon is becoming almost necessary infrastructure in the US. But considering that, seeing this and seeing that these kinds of actions going forward kind of it lets you take a little bit of heart that positive development, that people saw the Amazon union drive in Bessemer, and they thought to themselves, hey, why not us? Why not here? Which is exactly what I would hope continues to happen. Hopefully we can get more union density, more workers protected, and standing together. But yeah, that's good. I like that video. And More Perfect Union, subscribe to them. They do some fairly good work on this. They were all over. I think they just recently did a video. Let's see what they got. Let's look at one more of theirs. Yeah, I don't know about this one. Spotify and the music industry. Let's look at Spotify.
If you're on Spotify right now listening to my band, you would have to
I think you might be listening. So you could be listening to this on Spotify, by the way.
stream one of our songs 786 times for me to be able to buy a single cup of coffee.
In order to earn the equivalent of a standard living wage, we would need, with 4 members of our band, 2.6 million streams per month. Our current streaming rates fall far short of this.
In fact, 82% of musicians earn less than $270 a year from Spotify.
The average amount per stream
That's the idea.
is 0.0038. If you have a record label, the rate goes down way more because then you're sharing with the label.
I averaged to about a tenth of a penny per stream. And that's for projects with multiple musicians. Divide that by 4. I don't even know how to graphically show that. Like a quarter of a tenth of a penny.
Goddamn.
We are demanding a cent per stream for our music on Spotify.
My name is Liz Pelly. I'm a writer, and for the past few years, I've been writing about music streaming from a critical perspective. Streaming services like to promote this narrative that streaming saves the music industry and record industry profits have never been higher.
In 2006, the music industry was collapsing. Piracy was killing it. We believed there had
I don't know shit about the music industry. This is all like me learning. I don't have a whole lot to say here.
to be a better way. So we founded Spotify.
But it's not artists who are benefiting from this. A company like Spotify is just concerned with reducing its costs. And to a company like Spotify, paying artists royalties is a cost. To Spotify, artists are not seen as workers. Artists are seen as customers. In the face of that, it's really encouraging to see artists sort of pushing back.
Last year, early on in the pandemic, a group of musicians, including me, got together and we formed the Union of Musicians and Allied Workers.
Justice at Spotify is a campaign UMAL launched. We've had over 30,000 artists sign on to our demands, and we had in-person actions and petition deliveries at offices all over the world. Spotify responded just with a corporate PR push.
It was a crisis with COVID because musicians...
Same as Amazon, honestly. I mean, like, this is very similar, except the type of work is considerably different. I mean, but yeah.
Had no ability to tour, and they're not getting a lot of the income that comes from streaming. There really isn't much income for musicians.
At the start of the pandemic, we were on the heels of releasing an album. So we had a full year of tour book, and they were all canceled.
Had live gigs planned into like April, May, June, all of which were canceled.
You know, we've for over a year lost our ability to earn money from our work. But just during the pandemic, we've watched Spotify's valuation triple while artists continue.
That is also almost exactly the same as Amazon. Like, just like watching like wealth go to companies and come away from workers. And you would think that this would somehow be different. I guess more people are listening to music on streaming services now. I don't know.
Need to struggle.
Spotify also just raised its rates on its family plan. Of course, musicians have not seen any kind of a raise.
So a cent per stream would be extremely easy for them to pay.
Spotify claims that they're creating a healthier music industry, but for me, I wonder, healthier for who?
Data shows a larger share of the music industry is going to the very few top earners. Spotify has actually made the music industry less equal, more concentrated than it's ever been before.
The idea of like the like millionaire rock star or whatever, to me, this is just used to prop up what's an extremely broken and exploitative system built on the backs of workers.
I think the overall effect of all of this is that music itself is being devalued, and I'm worried for the future of music if we treat music this way.
A penny per stream is just really not a lot to ask. That's kind of all there is to it.
All right, cool. That was interesting video, if nothing else. Again, like I said, I don't know anything about the music industry, so the fact that they earn like a fraction of a penny for every play means they just never make any money unless they're like extremely popular. So that's not at all surprising, I suppose. That the corporate leeches over at Spotify are just doing all that they can to bilk the workers. Typical shit. Let's see, there was one more. This was going to probably take us over our time, but I started
Britain
late today.
has erupted in protest against Israel's onslaught on Gaza. On Saturday, thousands of people joined a march in central London calling for an end to the bombing of Gaza and the occupation of Palestine. Organisers estimated that 100,000 people attended the demonstration, which was called...
They do better on YouTube live streams than they do on Spotify. That makes sense too, because, well, you would think that they would be able to actually like ask people for donations on a YouTube live stream, right? As opposed to on Spotify or whatever, you don't really have that opportunity. You can't, I mean, I'm sure they would clip that shit out, right? If you're like saying, hey, go to my Patreon, pay to my PayPal, give me my Venmo, that whole thing. I really don't know very much. I don't know very much about like the difference between like Bandcamp and Spotify and iHeart, other than like iHeart used to be Clear Channel, and that was one of the most evil like radio corporations. That was the one that Howard Stern got the big fight with too, because they didn't like they basically like were responding to they were responding to federal regulators and his content. He called them Fear Channel, which is very funny.
Organised by Palestinian Solidarity Campaign, Friends of Al-Aqsa, Palestinian Forum in Britain, Stop the War Coalition, Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, and the Muslim Association of Britain. Now, in terms of the size, as this footage zooms out here, you can see that it's not just that initial crowd, but this march was snaking all the way down the road, all the way to Marble Arch, down Hyde Park. So really, really huge. Now, also flying the flag of Palestinian Solidarity this weekend were two Premier League footballers. So after winning the FA Cup final, one of probably the highest profile game in UK sport, Hamza Chowdhury and Wesley Fofana held up the Palestine flag.
Yeah.
Now, these are both players for Leicester City who had won the FA Cup, and Hamza Chowdhury went on to collect his medal.
I gotta say, like, again, there feels to me, and I could be wrong on this, it feels to me that there's been more support for the Palestinians that are under attack right now than at any point that I can remember. I mean, I mentioned this earlier, like there was, I remember marches, basically like Israel sort of Zionist marches happening when the last time in 2014 that I remember, there was a huge attacks on, Palestinian homes and neighborhoods, and, it was exact same shit. It seemed like just And I remember very little support. There was nobody in Congress, which matters to a certain extent. But there wasn't like any. There was definitely support for people, but it was mostly like online. And I did go to a march in, I think 2016 or 2017. But it was not that small. This was right after the Muslim ban. So it was a little bit different too. Like a lot of people were really fired up after the Muslim ban. But they had a march at but that's different too. But maybe that, I don't know, maybe that sort of trajectory has gotten people in a different set. I don't know, kind of musing here.
Still wrapped in the flag. So really powerful image, super, super symbolic. To my mind, both those protests in London and across the country and the flying of the flag at the FA Cup final were really, really inspiring demonstrations of solidarity. People say, I'm willing to go into the centre of town to take out time from my Saturday to go and walk in solidarity with Palestine. And then at the FA Cup, you've got people, it's probably the proudest moment of their life. And they're saying, the message I want to send at this period in time is that right now, in a moment that my whole career has led to, I am thinking of the Palestinians. I'm thinking of the struggle of people I relate to when they are fighting against injustice. To me, that's incredibly powerful, especially in terms of the football example. It also follows in the footsteps of other footballers who we've celebrated recently for standing up for the cause of justice. You could think of Marcus Rashford with free school meals, ex-footballer Gary Neville when he's talking about cutthroat capitalism. Very, very inspirational, really. Yet not everyone is happy to see these working class celebrities make their voices heard. Stephen Pollard is the editor of the Jewish Chronicle, and in response to the waving of the flag, Pollard wrote, "The FA needs to act immediately to discipline them." So just the act of waving.
Holy shit. So like you're saying the FA needs to discipline people who are showing support for families and children and just civilians being murdered? And notice he doesn't say why, which is really like a part of this too. Just like the assumption, the weight that he wants to sort of like suggest here, the bulk of what he wants to suggest is that like just the very fact that they're holding a fucking flag for Palestine is wrong, and that he just assumes that people are just going to also know that. Like, that's kind of nuts.
The Palestine flag, when Palestinians are being bombed, when children are dying, he thinks that should get you disciplined. Someone else who joined the cry of opposition and anger at these footballers for having an opinion was Gabriel Milland. Now, he's a former special advisor to Boris Johnson, now someone who works at a PR firm. He tweeted, "Presumably those defending Chowdhury and Fofana won't mind if Chelsea's Jewish owner, a resident of Israel, sends the team out wearing IDF uniforms when they play next week. Football belongs to everyone, not one side in a war." What? Now, that tweet is from, presumably a smart guy, lots of followers. He's worked in Downing Street, influential guy. And it's such a ridiculous argument. And I think it is quite telling of how desperate now the supporters of Israel and Israel's government are getting, because, most obviously, a military uniform and a flag are not the same thing. So he's saying, what would you think if they came out in an IDF uniform? If you said an Israel flag, maybe the comparison would work. If footballers wanted to go out holding the Israel flag, maybe they would have done. But no one really wants to, because the vast majority of people in this country can see that in this war, there is one side which is systematically bombing civilians and has killed over 200 people. And there is one side who is resisting occupation and has barely any power, barely any force. It's completely desperate. And quite rightly, the solidarity of people in this country lies with the people who are suffering occupation, who are suffering apartheid. And to me, it just seems, both of those, these people.
I mean, over 200 Palestinian deaths by this point, and I think it's less than 10 Israelis. I mean, it's insane, the disparity of casualties here, and like just saying that you stand with the people that are being fucking slaughtered is just like, well, that's unacceptable. Is just
should be disciplined. This should not be allowed, because what if the other side wants
by
to
the
do
way, I'm just to be clear, I don't have the most recent numbers. I know I knew it was over 200 Palestinians. I don't know how many Israeli deaths there were, just to be 100% on the facts of that.
the same thing? It's showing that there is no confidence among the advocates of Israel that they can rally any support for their cause. So what they have to, I suppose, fall back on is this idea that we have to ban any expression of support for either side. We are essentially going to call the manager if anyone comes out and tells us their opinion about this war, because they know that public opinion is going against them.
Comparing them having the Palestinian flag to somebody having an Israel flag, I think is the right comparison. And of course, they can fly whatever flag they like. It could be the Pride flag, it could be the Union flag, the St. George Cross. People might disagree with it. People might think, I think, that's a bit wet, or I don't like that, or they might be homophobes. They might not like the pride flag. But the point is, there is an element of freedom of expression with regards to football, sport generally, of course. And the idea that we don't have politics in sport, well, okay, I'll remind you of that statement the next time we have, November come around and everybody has a poppy on their shirt and there's a minute's silence, as I think is appropriate, in a minute's silence to remember the war dead. Then, of course, you have some players like Nemanja Matic or James McLean, for personal reasons, choose not to do that. And they get a lot of hassle from fans, but I think most intelligent people say that's their choice, right? It's about freedom of political conscience and freedom of expression. This is exactly the same. And so, imagine if, for instance, a footballer, please, one day, the game isn't so inherently homophobic that people can be outwardly, expressive and open and honest about their sexuality. If a footballer has a pride
I knew
flag.
it was over 200
Now imagine,
Palestinians were murdered. I didn't know how many Israelis, but it's a fraction. It's a fraction of the same number of people.
If a person on Twitter said that's unacceptable, keep politics out of sport, I don't want to see that flag. Well, is it hurting you? A lot of these people claim to be liberals, right? If it's not hurting you, what's the problem? I would personally find an Israel flag on a football pitch if the person wasn't from Israel. Okay, it's a bit strange. And so if I'm trying my absolute best to get into the head of Gabriel Milland, maybe that's what you might say. Well, he's not from Palestine. Why would you do that? That at least is a coherent answer. But what he tweeted, and what a few like Stephen Pollard as well. Like you say, Mike, I think it doesn't really say much about their intelligence, which is positive. But more importantly, I think it's really illustrative of the levels of desperation we're now seeing, where people who've moaned about cancel culture and the aggressive left and how we don't protect freedom of
100%. It's desperation. I'll back up a little bit. It's desperation because I keep mentioning that it feels like public opinion has swung on this. And hello, Sam. And these two fellows have mentioned that as well. And when you end up on the other side of what was, I guess, a popular position, even though it's a horrible position, you start complaining about being canceled. So there you go. Sam.
As well. Like you say, Mike, I think it doesn't really say much about their intelligence, which is positive. But more importantly, I think it's really illustrative of the levels of desperation we're now seeing, where people who've moaned about cancel culture and the aggressive left and how we don't protect freedom of speech, many of these exact same people who've apparently been exasperated by identity politics and not being able to say what you really think, deal with the Saudis. And what does that consist of? Small arms, guns and so on. But generally speaking, it's components for rather high-tech stuff. So for instance, even with their nuclear capability, which includes a submarine element, some of that technology is being exported by British manufacturers, British companies. I think it's a perfectly legitimate thing to say, first off the bat, Britain should not be exporting technology to a country which is using its military like this. And I think anybody that would say that's outrageous, I just don't think they should be taken seriously. The idea that that's simply not on the table as leverage by which we can stop these atrocities against human rights, I don't think that's credible. After the military applications, I think you clearly have to say these are illegal settlements. Therefore, products manufactured, made, mined, grown in these areas, clearly they should not be, I think, imported into the United Kingdom. Again, I think any of this is, no, that's terrible.
Perfect. I love it.
not be, I think, imported into the United Kingdom. Again, I think any of this is, no, that's terrible. How could you say that things produced from stolen land are therefore, simply not permitted? There's again another, we talk about this tomorrow, there's a legal argument about this as well. Products made on illegally occupied land,
if I stop petting him,
de
he
facto
bites
may be
me.
illegal products. Of course, that doesn't really get applied, but it's a conversation to have. And then there's a broader thing. Okay, well, beyond the settlements, beyond military exports, what's our economic relationship with Israel going to be? And I personally think boycott, divestment and sanctions, I think, is a really, really powerful way of going about things. We're told incessantly, violence begets violence. You have to be peaceful. Well, BDS is peaceful. It's peaceful. So if you're really insisting people remain peaceful, and then you say, well, actually, sanctions aren't acceptable, you're not really talking about political tactics or what's ethically appropriate. You're trying to basically stop anything which may change Israel's behavior in Palestine, which right now is leading in Gaza to effectively an open-air prison for millions of people and is clearly compromising inalienable human rights and rights to self-determination and self-government. And I think that clearly can change potentially if enough countries impose sanctions on Israel and it's peaceful. You can't have one or the other. You have to be non-violent, but you can't use sanctions. Because I think people that say those two things at the same time, again, not credible, not serious, ignore them.
Now, in this section, we've been talking about, lots of the inspiring things that have been going on this weekend when it comes to Palestine solidarity in the UK. And the overwhelming majority of this is anti-racists who have solidarity with people who are subject to occupation and subject to oppression. It is, I think it's wonderful to see. But you probably will also have seen a video on social media this weekend of a convoy of cars with Palestinian flags driving through St. John's Wood. So that's the majority, maybe not majority, but it's got a large Jewish population. And there were people shouting, or at least one man who appears to shout really, really horrific, nasty anti-Semitism from the car, including rape threats, the kind of thing Nazis. That no one should
That's the other thing
ever say.
Is that, I remember while I was watching Hassan Biker stream the other day, and he has this setup. Let me see if I can find the video. I can't with this cat here. Maybe next time. But he basically has it so that a lot of streamers have this set up. If they have they give a donation to a show, there'll be like a text to speech, and this person just put "kill the Jews, kill the Jews, kill the Jews, kill the Jews," which is obviously, and he stopped it, he paused it. It took him a second. Obviously, you can't do things immediately.
Appalling.
And stop, Sam. He started screaming at this person. He banned that person. He said he was going to report that person. And he also, because when you give a donation on Twitch, sorry to give a Nazi tips, but if any Nazis are watching, don't listen to this part. You can essentially report their email, especially, or you get their email. And this idiot, this freaking jerk, used his university email. So you can just report them to their university, which I think, I'm not usually one to go run into the manager or whatever, but you should definitely do that. In that particular case. Anyway, some person, it was a young woman, took that video, cut off it basically, she only played the part where it said the text to speech, and basically started saying, see, this is what happens. She left off all of the part after that, where he starts screaming at this Nazi and at this horrible, about this horrible stuff, and how he bans and then reports this person, and then says he's gonna, report it to their university, and basically says, leaves the only context of, that Hassan is creating this space where you are inviting Nazis in, which is just the most ridiculous and most it's a fucking hatchet job. And this is something that does happen a lot too. People are very often sort of smeared for defending Palestine, and that's an example of that. And that's all I wanted to sort of point out. That was wild. I was like blown away when I saw that shit. Let me see if I can find the video.
And it is worth saying, everyone should 100% condemn what we saw in that video. 4 arrests have been made by the Met Police. Now, for me, that obviously soured some of those events from the weekend. I don't think in any way it overshadows any of them, because we saw 100,000 people, super peaceful, solidaristic, anti-racist. It's super inspiring to see that. And actually, to be honest, I do think that, the outpouring of condemnation that followed that nasty video, I think does show that, the overwhelming vast majority of people involved in this movement have nothing whatsoever to do with anti-Semitism and condemn it outright. And that's what we saw happen. So yes, it was right that we saw so many people share that video and say this is wrong, but also that should absolutely not tar what is an anti-racist, peaceful movement who are fighting for something positive and to end an occupation and apartheid.
Yeah. Anyway, I can't find that video, and I got to wrap it up anyway. I got to get dressed and go to work. But thank you so much to everybody watching right now. Thank you. First off, thank you, G Wolf, our newest patron on patreon.com/Good Morning Comrade. We're trying to determine what I should do when we get to our goal of 25 patrons. Drop us a line here, or comment on the video if you have any ideas about what kind of public humiliation Jeff should do, or maybe public humiliate Scott or Robert or Aaron or something like that. We could do that one too. But anyway, yeah, patreon.com/Good Morning Comrade. You can help support the show, keep this show sustainable. Yeah, all you have to do is watch the stream for 10 minutes to know it's BS. But that's a big ask for a lot of people, yeah. And yeah, I mean, again, he's been doing awesome work. I mean, I like Hassan, but he's been doing awesome work on covering Palestine. And he's got a very good analysis, in my opinion. And he's very strong about it, and he communicates it in very relatable terms, if that makes any kind of sense. So check him out. Not that he freaking needs it. He's got 40K subs or whatever. It's up to me, not to him, or both. It's up to both of us. But anyway, you can watch Good Morning Comrade Monday through Friday on YouTube. You can listen to our show on the radio, WHIV 102.3, and you can find more information about all of our stuff, goodmorningcomrade.com. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, G-Wolf. Thank you, Kenzo. Thank you, Top Damage Wizard. Thank you, Lauren Real Name. Thank you, everybody. Love you. Bye-bye.